Good afternoon all, my name is Dejana Mutavdžin. I'm assistant professor at the Faculty of Music, University of Arts in Belgrade, and today I'm going to introduce you to disability models as a way of promoting greater inclusivity in specialist artistic education. So let's start. In scientific literature, the importance of inclusive education is often indicated by referring to some international documents brought by international governing bodies such as the United Nations, where education is seen as a right, inclusive education is seen as a way of fulfilling that right, and also as a way of building a more just world. When it comes to the inclusive education, in past decade it has gone from the traditional view as an education meant for some or small group of students, often referred as students with disabilities or students with additional support needs, to the view which in greater extent appreciate different dimensions of student diversity, in greater extent acknowledges the classroom reality and acknowledges and values each student uniqueness. This shift in thinking, as it's often been referred, had its implications on the policy, but also it has its implications on the way the future teachers are prepared for inclusive education. When it comes to Serbian context, our educational system has embraced inclusive philosophy and practice of inclusivity. Some authors from the field of giftedness, among them Altaras Dimitrijević and Sanja Tatić Janevski, rightfully pose the question, where is the place of gifted education and educating gifted children in this inclusivity framework. And they consider, after reviewing theoretical but also empirical evidence, that they suggest that inclusion can indeed serve as a general framework for supporting gifted students. And this shouldn't come as a surprise because from the giftedness domain we already know that a gift in one domain can be followed by a weakness in some other domain. So we already know that in our classrooms there are children who are gifted in one domain but need some additional support in some others, and those some in other or maybe others. Those children are referred in literature as twice exceptional or double labeled. But here we are not referring only to them, because the introduction of affirmative enrollment policies has posed some additional challenge when it comes to competences of those teachers who are working in the artistic education field. Because from the fact that we know from music education, the population of students has become more diverse when it comes to the level and the type of support the students need. When it comes to preparing future teachers for inclusive education, there are some different opinions when it comes to the format and when it comes to the content. But it seems that most of the authors agree that the competences that teachers should acquire comprise theoretical knowledge, skills, but also attitudes or values or beliefs that are deemed essential for inclusive education. In this lecture, we are going to address more the issue of teachers' attitudes. One of the reasons being that teachers' attitudes towards inclusive education are often mentioned as the reason why teacher education for inclusive education is not giving us the expected results, but also because teachers' attitudes are shaping their behaviors, and they are shaping the classroom climate, and by that directly affecting the experience of students with disabilities. But not only that, by our behavior, we might, as teachers, we might model the same behavior in our students, and by that we affect their behavior towards their peers, but also if some of them choose the path in education and become teachers themselves, there is a possibility that some of the behaviors that they saw in us might replicate in the relationship with their students. So that's why we are today we are dealing with those attitudes towards disability, and we are referring to them as disability models. Disability models are, in a nutshell, the ways in which disability is discussed and it's understood. They are our approach or attitudes toward persons with disability. They, as I already have said, they shape our behaviors. They also serves as a basis for defining specific policies and measures that are available for persons with disabilities, but also they serve as a basis for legal regulations governing the positions of persons with disabilities. Today we are going to mention 5 most prominent models of disability that are presented in the paper of Erin Andrews. Her paper is the backbone of today's lecture. So for those of you who are interested in learning more about this topic, I recommend this article, but also this article is supplemented with some insight from dear colleagues such as Olja Jovanović, Vera Rajović, Nevena Strižak, Luka Mijatović, and Sanja Dimoski. So if you want to learn more about this, and if this topic intrigues you, you are more than welcome to dig into these papers. When it comes to disability models, why we are paying them so much attention? Well, because the model from which we are using, from which we are approaching, it affects our behaviors, it affects our the terminology that we use, and the terminology that we use has some personal, social, but also medical and political implications. So we need to be aware of those things. First of the models that I'm going to introduce you to is moral model. Moral model is one of the oldest models. It's not as prevalent today as it was, but it's still present. And the colleagues and I have had the opportunity to observe it in practice and also in some of our students. This model is heavily saturated by religious doctrine, and it postulates disability as a result of a moral failure or a sin on part of a person or some of his or her family members. So disability is seen as a source of shame or a burden, a cross for that person to bear. But also it can be considered persons with disability, if you approach them from this conceptual framework, they can be observed as specifically virtuous or the chosen one. And here I have prepared as an example one of the quotes from one of my ex-students, and this data were obtained for realization of one paper, scientific paper, and it goes like this. We realize that all these people are necessary in this world, more and more pure and open. So you can see here that virtuousness dimension and that predestination. The language that's used by those who are approaching persons with disability from this conceptual framework is today seen as derogatory, but it reflects a pity-based attitude where a person with disability is placed in subordinated position and is treated as somebody in need of charity. This is quite problematic because it precludes a meaningful role of persons with disability in the society. It promotes social ostracism, and also it can have negative effects on the way a person is perceiving oneself. It might result in disliking oneself. When it comes to manifestations of this model, you can see them in attempts to elicit pity in order to obtain something. In school context, you can observe it by trying on behalf of students or families. You can observe it by actually in that specific way by trying to elicit pity in order for the requirements to be reduced, but also you can observe it in behaviors of teachers who might justify some accommodations when it comes to the curriculum or maybe the outcomes, maybe altering outcomes of that specific class, being justified with the fact that the person has enough on its plate, so he or she doesn't need your course or this on top of that. Let me just put it more clear. This doesn't mean that adapting the curricula or adapting the requirements or the outcomes is not a justifiable way of supporting a student in the educational context. What I want to say that it is quite problematic if you, as a basis for it, you do not rely on the assessment of persons' abilities, of persons' aspirations, of the resources available, but you base your decision solely on the feeling of sorry for that student. And that's all when it comes to moral model. When it comes, before we proceed to the medical model, I would like to stress the fact that even though it has some problematic consequences, if you encounter that in your student and their families, you should be aware that it's one of the ways of making sense of some experience. So you're not supposed to introduce something something else, some different conceptual framework, just because you think that this one has more than one challenge, but you should try gently to do so if you see that it is causing distress and damage to the person. Otherwise, you are expected to be inclusive and to accept that as a way of conceptualizing the experience. The other model that we are going to introduce today is the medical model. It gained prominence at the early 20th century, and it still can be observed today. You can observe it in some of the public policies, which are heavily influenced by this model. The main postulate of this model is that impairment is a problem in need of remedy or cure. So disability is seen as an impairment and as something that needs to be treated. Who is going to treat it? The experts are going to treat it. So in this model, also a person with disability is put into a subordinated position. This is somebody who is expected to obey and who is expected to listen the experts, because the experts are those who know what's best for the person. In this model, through the lens of this model, the disability is viewed as a medical problem. It's viewed as a flaw inside of the individual. So the individual is or the body of the individual is a source of a problem, is the place where the problem resides. It's something, the disability is also seen as something that should be removed. It's also an explanation why a person has been excluded or cannot perform expected social roles, and it's seen also as a social challenge. When it comes to education, the medical model can be seen in specialized educational systems, which are, as some authors observe, meant to separate persons with disabilities from their peers, and they are put in that specialized system for them to be, in order for them to acquire those competencies that are needed for them to function and thrive in the world from which they are being segregated. When it comes to the language that's used in the medical model, you can observe that the groups are defined only on the basis of the impairment. So you will often observe that somebody is referred to through the diagnosis and not by any other specific attributes. One of the examples that Erin Andrews is providing is stemming from the medical context, and for you to better grasp this, I'm going to share an experience of my colleague who is quite okay with the fact that I share it. He had an ingrown toenail that needed treatment. And while he was waiting for the procedure to be done, he overheard a nurse and a doctor in a conversation where the nurse referred to him as a nail. So she wasn't using his name, she wasn't calling him a patient, she called him a nail. And that experience is quite illustrative because he said that at that point he felt being reduced to a single teeny tiny bit of his body, and not any bit or any part of the body, but the part that's defected in some way, the part that it's in need of treatment. So that this experience, I think it's quite illustrative when you are trying to imagine how a person with disability feels when you are referring to him or her solely by diagnosis. When it comes to the solution for this challenge, we said that the body of the body of the person is the challenge, and the solution is curing that impairment. by applying rehabilitations, drugs, therapy, and all those interventions are introduced by experts. In this during this process, little or no attention is being paid to other sources of limitations, such as environmental or attitudinal barriers, and also the other strengths of the persons, the other qualities are overlooked in this process, but also cultural and political factors are ignored. Once more, persons with disability are placed in subordinated position, and it had effects when it comes to their behavior, because when they are put in the position when they are expected to obey and to listen what the experts have to say, they are being learned to act more passively. Learned helplessness might be also some of the outcomes, but also if you are making decisions in name of somebody because you know better, you are preventing that person to experiment, you are preventing that person to try something new, you are excluding the person from some meaningful experience that can further the development, but also you are preventing that person from learning something about oneself and from developing different parts of identities. In school context, this can be seen by inadvertently not giving students some of the assignments, because you know from the diagnosis and from everything that's been written in the information that you, in the folder that you got about that student, that he or she can't do that. You should try and see if the person actually can. Also, it can be seen if a teacher or somebody who is in the position of power, because medical model raises the power issues, is not speaking to a person in the first person but in the third person, or it's speaking, he or she is speaking about a person with disabilities, with parents or the carer, as if that person is not there. So those kind of behaviors are problematic, and we want to pay your attention to them. Why are they problematic? Well, because we know, and those who are critical towards a medical model say that persons with disabilities are quite capable of participating in society. The medical model puts sort of a pathological view on disability, and it has a dehumanizing effect of when you address people by the diagnosis. And you, as that nail example demonstrated, you are reducing a person on a diagnosis and ignoring his or her other characteristics. And also, the point being that the idea of the medical model is that the impairment exists in the body, and the experts are being introduced in order for them to treat and cure that impairment. Some of the critics say that for some states we still don't have the cure. So that's why we need to have a bit of broader view on the situation. That's all when it comes to medical model. One of the offshoot of the medical model is the rehabilitation model, where the coping language is used, and where also some of the issues, such as those power issues, are being raised again. But what's specific for the rehabilitation model is that people with disabilities are regarded as being in need of services from rehabilitation professionals, and the rehabilitation professionals can provide them with some sort of help that can compensate for the disabilities. We are going to place some emphasis on the next model that I'm going to introduce to you, and that's the social model. The social model emerged at the 60s and 70s of the 20th century, and it was sparked by the movements of persons with disability and independent living movements. It had also profound impact on some countries' policy and legislation, according to Kimball and Associates. The main postulate of this model is that disability is a normal aspect of life. The disability is seen as a neutral feature, as a social construction, and as a normal feature of human diversity. The barriers in the society are seen as a problem. So you can see the shift from the medical model, where the problem resides in person's body, but now the barriers in the society are those who are seen as a problem, and with that the problem emanates from the interaction between the person and the surrounding. And when we are speaking about barriers, we are speaking about attitudinal barriers, about structural barriers, but also about some general environmental barriers, such as physical obstacles to access. In order for us to understand this thing better, see that disability, as those proponents of the social model say, is a social construction, we can rely on one of the most often given example in the literature, and that's the example of a person who is the user of the wheelchairs and who is having some accessibility problems when it comes to entering a specific building. If you are approaching persons with disabilities from the medical model, you might say that that person can't enter the building because he or she is confined to a wheelchair, and that's it. So the problem is in the person. She can't access the building because of the condition in which he or she is. But if you are a social model, if you're applying social model, you can say that that person can't access the building because the building doesn't have ramps, automatic door openers, elevators, or something. So by that you are saying that the people with disabilities will experience less marginalization on the basis of their physical impairment if the society introduced some specific measures in order for them to participate in greater extent. When it comes to the school context, this also makes us question some social norms when it comes to college experience. So Kimball and Associates also make us think about the length of a typical semester, or the time allocated for individual classes sessions, or over-reliance on objective testing. Because when you start thinking about these experiences of students with disabilities, you might see that these social norms aren't tailored to the educational needs of each student, because students with some learning difficulties might need more time for them to master the curricula. So if you have the semester which is framed by a specific number of weeks, or if the classes are meant to last 45 minutes or 90 minutes, that might not be enough for persons with learning difficulties to grasp and to acquire the knowledge that they are intended. So by using the social model, you start questioning those barriers that are posed by the society, and trying to see how we can overcome them. The language that is characterized by that is used by those who are advocating for the social model is the person-first language. So when you are referring to somebody, you will put in the first place that is a person who is a user of a wheelchair, a person who has dyslexia, a person who has ADHD, or or whatever. But the person first language is something that is used by those who are acting from the social model perspective. Why is this important? Well, because according to some of the authors, it preserves humanity and promotes individuality. You are not referring to a person from the medical, from the diagnosis. You are not calling somebody dyslexic, but person with dyslexia, in order for promoting his or her individuality. The aim of the social model is to adapt the environment to enable full development and participation, and in it, each child is seen as an individual, and the assignment is to provide the additional support. That additional support is holistic. It's not meant to treat only the impairment, the state, but it's focused on the abilities, the potentials, the aspirations of the child, but also the resources that are available in the environment. This approach is not without the critics, because some of the critics ask who qualifies as a person with disability. If you treat a disability as a neutral feature, who qualifies for that? And how do we estimate or determine disability? So the last model that we are going to present here is the diversity model, who is largely driven by the academic field of disability studies and by those so-called insiders in the social model, persons with disabilities themselves. The diversity model is the extension of the social model, and the main postulate is that disability may be even valued or celebrated as part of one's identity. So it's not seen as something neutral, but it's seen as a distinct, a diverse cultural and socio-political experience. It's seen as a prominent part of somebody's identity that shapes the experiences of that person. So, and the major impediment is ableism when it comes to lives of persons with disability. So in the diversity model, you can see it in the language it used, going one step further from the social model. We said that social model uses the person first language, but this diversity model uses identity first language. It's not saying person with dyslexia. It puts the state first, and sometimes used the term disabled with capital D is trying to signify the allegiance to disability culture. These are 5 models recognized by Andrews, whose chapter I warmly recommend you. Once more, why we were discussing it this afternoon? Well, because the way the models represent conceptual framework. They are the ways we understand, we approach disability, and they also represent our attitudes toward disability and the way we understand the nature of it. And they, as we mentioned, they shape our behavior towards persons with disability. When we are teaching, when we are in the roles of teachers, our behaviors are shaping the classroom climate, are shaping the experiences of our students with disabilities, and also are modeling the behavior of students who doesn't have disability towards their peers, but also towards other people with disability whom they might encounter. So the idea is the idea of this lecture was just to make this relationship more clear and to make us all stop for a moment and reconsider our educational practices, to see whether we might recognize some of the features of some of those models that we introduced in the past half an hour. How do we feel about the things that we recognize, and what is that we are going to do with this knowledge that we gain today? And only by analyzing our teaching practices, we are one step closer to becoming reflexive and inclusive practitioners, as some authors are thinking that teachers that are teaching in inclusive educational classrooms are meant to be. So I thank you for your attention. More information about the resources used in this lecture are going to be available beneath this video. So if you are interested in them, you can consult them for further reading. Have a nice day, and try to think about your educational practices. Bye-bye.